Okay, so I'm live again. Yesterday there was a great big thunderstorm during the thing, so my 2 hour video was only 5 minutes. So I'll try again even though I'm quite tired. And I hope that I can remember some of what I said, but I just ramble anyway, so it comes to me and make of it what you will. Look, we are in a mind game Earth matrix. That's how I would describe it, and many others would probably use similar things. Now, I'm going to say from the start, I'm very ignorant. I don't understand everything that I even talk about completely. Okay? I know some of it to be real enough for me personally to where I say that's valid. Okay? Where I say that's valid. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that I'm a scientist and that I understand how things work. I don't. I'll tell you that now. Also, I don't believe in science anyway, so there again, but that's another thing. But I do think there is some validity in science, okay? And there's some truth and they show you certain things that may be what our reality kind of is, okay? Like what the essence of it almost is, that type of thing. But like I say, I see things to be true, but I don't understand how things work. Now, that is how it was meant to be anyway, I think, in the original Garden of Eden, shall we say, whatever you want to say, the beginning of time, as I've said before. When I say the beginning of time, I mean the beginning of time like here on Earth. I don't mean the beginning of time. When humans, uh, um, were first plonked here, shall we say, or whatever, or created, depending on your belief. Now, that is open to debate too. I have my own ideas on it, and that's just based on what I think myself, my own instincts, and from information, okay? Because you could easily say different things about the actual creation, even from not just from a biblical point of view, shall we say, even though I'm not that familiar with the Bible either. But even from a biblical point of view, or from a technical Archon history, shall we say, like that. But there again, if you're not familiar with this and you haven't looked into it, then it will seem alien. And of course, it is alien because it is basically about other beings coming from out there, coming to Earth and colonizing it, you could say, at one point. Uh, taking over, shall we say, but there again, as I've said before, as human beings are spiritual beings, and they invited the technological beings in. They obviously didn't invite them to come here, but when they came, instead of saying, no, look, you should leave, they entertained them and were seduced and believed in them and went along with them, and so that's what you call colonisation as opposed to takeover or invasion, if you know what I'm saying. Because human beings did have free will, and they always have had, because they're spiritual beings, as I said before, in a physical body. Their thought creates reality, and they're all connected. These are the basics that I always start with and say. Now, even that is something that I say, but I don't understand fully how it works. In other words, I think it to be true, believe it to be true, but see, these are, they're again words. You say think, you say belief, and they're words, and even the words sometimes can put connotations on things, and this is part of the playground that we live in, the video game, the matrix, shall I say, because even language can be a very deceptive thing. You might not be expressing yourself as well as what you think with even the language we use. So when I say I believe, that kind of implies a very strong, belief, But if I say I think, then I don't know. Does that mean it's lesser? It's just your idea? You know what I'm saying? I won't go on about that anyway, but what I'm saying is it's very hard sometimes even to say things without putting a wrong light on them. Now, at any rate, I'll get back to what I was saying, if I can. I know I'm long-winded and get off track. And I'm not going to put a whole picture because even I could still be missing quite a few pieces, because even when you think you've got the whole picture, you really haven't, because you don't understand the whole picture. You might still know that certain things are happening, certain things appear to be true to you, but you still might not because we're not at the level of awareness and enlightenment, shall I say, that we're supposed to be at. That's not possible. So even when you get the information, the knowledge, which is another thing I'm going to go on about too, information, knowledge is a bad thing, I believe. We need to de-educate ourselves, not educate ourselves, not bombard ourselves with more knowledge and information. We need to do the opposite. But maybe it's too late now, I don't know, because I think that's, as I've said before, originally in the Garden of Eden, or the beginning of when we were here, we were not meant to have all this information. We were not meant to, partake of the tree of good and evil and of knowledge. That sounds ridiculous to most people, because most people would say, why would you not want to take of knowledge? Knowledge is power. Well, look, it is now. We need the knowledge now, but we need truth knowledge, because we have put ourselves into this pickle. That's putting it very mildly, to say the least, in my opinion anyway. We've got ourselves into this pickle where if you allow other beings to control a world that you once should have been perhaps controlling, well, at least if you were here first and then you invite others in, or you let them come in and you entertain their ideas and then go for their systems and their beliefs and their way of doing things, then you have went away from what you were supposed to be doing, because originally we would have been there on our own, and we were not meant to be bombarded with all this knowledge, that we were not meant to take of the knowledge and stuff, because the knowledge corrupted us. Good and evil corrupts us, because we were spiritual beings, so therefore we were meant to remain innocent, you could say, but develop all our abilities. And if we had developed our abilities, our full high level of awareness, high level of enlightenment, shall we say. These are just words there again, but it means that we would know everything automatically anyway. We wouldn't have to read a book, we wouldn't have to go to the internet, we wouldn't have to use technology. We would just know it, because it would just come to us, because we would have reached a certain level. Whereas right now we're all right down here. So we only have the knowledge that is around us, and that is knowledge that is the knowledge of the matrix Earth, not from within us, that we should have activated all our own DNA and reached higher levels to where we could. Also, I personally believe, as I've said before, there again the word belief, I think, okay, that we were meant to just be there on our own in the garden or on this earth, and we were meant to just develop those things naturally, and we would have known everything. We would have been aware and able to access all that was around us. Even like I'm guessing that we would have been able to even move our body, our actual body would have been maneuverable to anywhere we wanted. And by that I mean anywhere on the planet and even outside of the planet, and to other realms, shall we say, anywhere. But there again, I can't speak of these places because I'm not at that level and I haven't been there. So it appears to be speculation. And but this is what I do think. And I also say, well, I back that up from not just my own experience, even though, like I say, I have not done this and can't do it because the world around us, this Earth matrix, which is controlled by the entity that came here a long time ago from out there, technological being, became technological, very advanced technologically, they control this whole domain. They control the whole Earth. The Earth, and the reason I say the word matrix, it's fashionable now, yes, and at least people might understand it, but it is a matrix because the matrix, a bit like from the movie, which I'd only seen, as I said before, very recently, says the matrix is control. And basically that's what it is a system, because everything on this planet is a system and a control thing. Everything we do is controlled. Now, I know that you might say, well, hey, I might feel that I'm persecuted, but I can still walk down the street. Well, that's my point. You know, if you feel that you're persecuted, but you can still walk down the street, then there is something going on. If you feel that you're controlled, if you feel you're restricted, if you feel you're not free, even though you might be still able to walk around or whatever, or go overseas or different things that people do, that is because you are becoming aware that although you appear to have that freedom, you still have to, it's still a matrix, that it's still like, it's as though this earth has, um, like you still have to do it a certain way. Whereas I'm saying originally, I think we could have just flown ourselves to anywhere we wanted in the blink of an eye. And so, and we wouldn't have had to wait for a plane or follow the rules and then go through the turnstiles and pay for it and put money in. Well, there again, money is part of the system and the world, the way it's a control type of thing. Money controls us. And look, it's if you really think about it, once you start to free your mind a little bit, which is very hard, you do start to see that it is all operates to keep you in a pattern and to keep you going where you're supposed to go. You're not really just doing everything, as I say, like we were meant to originally, just like that, with your own will, without having to ask anyone, without having to do any procedures, without having to go here, there, or everywhere to get to a certain point. You know what I'm saying? It sounds far-fetched, I know, but that's, I think, what originally, as a spiritual being, we were meant to be very advanced. Instead, we have, because we took of knowledge and started to follow the rules and the God entity, which then it became his domain. This is what I think. Now, some people, if I've looked at an alternative history, right? Now, some people say that the God entity genetically changed humans, which he did, from what I can gather. Okay. And so there, and some people would say he created completely, because the Bible tells you that the God created from the earth and all this sort of stuff. That is not the God that we think. That is the God, technological being God, that rules this earth. It is a God and it is a being, and it did technically manipulate and change the human being. That's what you call the fall of man, going out of the Garden of Eden, because instead of evolving naturally, as I've said before, and developing all the skills, this is what I think, he went for the tree of good and bad, right and wrong, the duality of this world, and the knowledge, so-called knowledge. Now, the knowledge was technological type knowledge, information, shall we say, but also because there was genetic manipulation by the god who was advanced genetically as technically. In other words, they can do things genetically and at a technical level that we are only touching on probably now ourselves, okay? Which we shouldn't be touching it anyway, I don't think, at all. None of this should be touched. None of this should be in our realm. All of this to me is alien, which it literally is alien because it's from beings that come, aliens if you like, from out there. There are names and things, and I might one day put the names that I have the knowledge of. Lots of people know them anyway, but as I'm talking to people. I assume if I'm talking to anyone at all, a few people, because I certainly don't get many people watching. Most of the time, no one from what the views anyway, but the beings, they came and they do have names, but I don't want to go into that because I want to keep it simple, because that's how I see it as simple, because I don't fully understand it all. So I keep it simple, and I assume that I'm not talking to some of the people that I've seen on some other videos and things where they have a vast knowledge of all these things and vast information. I'm trying to keep it simple, just not only for myself, but for the people, anyone that does listen, because I'm assuming that I mainly want to talk to people like myself that have been in the dark for all their life, like me, and that they did not know anything at all, did not even know a lot of the alternative information, whether they even believed it or not, because you could read a book or something about this type of knowledge of beings that came and stuff, and then you dismiss it. But I have not even looked into it at all. I just thought I was just a human being on this earth planet that was totally natural, not particularly controlled by anything or anyone, totally randomly flowing through the solar system or whatever, and that everything I did was random, and that basically everything that had happened in my life was just bad luck, and that if there was any control at all, which I think most people would agree that we do live in a control world anyway, that the only control would be the laws and the rules and regulations that we ourselves, we have implemented, which I don't think anyway, but we have allowed them to be implemented. And if we go along with things, they become our laws and our rules, and we restrict ourselves, I think. But, that's open to debate too. As I've said before, for most people, because they're so paranoid and because they're so mind, I don't like to say mind control, but really it is mind control, because it means that if you watch something on your computer and you believe it to be true, and then you act on it. In other words, if they say, oh, look, there's been a lot of burglaries round where you are, perhaps you need to get a security system. And then if something happens, I do that. You see, I don't think that that's the matrix. I think that's just me. I think, oh, well, yeah, there's been a lot of burglaries, there's a lot of criminals, there's a lot, and I might see it happen next door, or might even happen to me. Then I will think, yes, I shall get a security. And then that becomes the setup and the start of everyone doing that. And then that becomes acceptable everywhere else for people to do this, and it becomes an acceptable part of our world that we should be all watching ourselves and watching everything, and that makes us feel safe. Whereas I would say the opposite, that any device is part of the matrix. So therefore, you might choose to get it, but you don't control it. And whilst you might think you're using it for yourself and you're watching something, you must remember that whoever invented that thing or that item just putting it simply, they also control it, and you don't know them, and they are powerful people, because they would, because everything that gets implemented is not into. I don't implement anything, neither do you. We have powers and powerful people that run this world. We know that we have our systems and our leaders and this and that. I'm not going to go into that because I've never been a political person my entire life. I do not like politics. I don't even vote. So all this is strange to me, and I don't particularly like going there at all. I like to think that, oh yeah, sure, some things I don't like if they bring something in, but I'm still free and I can still just do my own thing. But that is not really the case. And that took me a lifetime to see it. But then again, it did have to be shoved in my face. So that's another issue too. But the matrix when the matrix really comes down on you, when you really start to see it, if it actually infiltrates your own personal space, well, then you will start to see it. But that doesn't happen for most people, because if you're operating for it and working for it to some extent, as we all have done in the past, but the minute you, like I've said before, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. Plus, the basics of science, even though I don't understand it, everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. So, if I, as a human being, either deliberately or unconsciously in any way, if my vibration starts to rise a bit, doesn't have to even be very much, because I've never been at a high vibration, I can tell you that now. But even if it just starts to rise a little bit, maybe you wake up to something, maybe you get rid of someone in your life that has been keeping you at even more of a low vibration. This is all the matrix anyway, but you get rid of them, then your vibration might rise a little bit. Well, then the matrix will have to find some other means to keep the vibration down, because the matrix can only function at a low vibration. The God entity that runs the matrix operates at low vibration and can only operate even in the matrix, and can only affect the matrix participants, us human beings, if the vibration is low. Once it rises a little bit, then you're moving away out of the matrix, and you're moving away from where the God can interact with you so much, shall we say. Because the God does definitely totally interacts, and totally puts thoughts into our minds, can totally, this is not direct from him, there again, and this is where it gets complicated, because as I haven't seen these things, it does become hard to actually discuss them. But they are beings, they are beings, they're different groups of beings. As I've said before, I say it's Satan's world because Satan is the term that everyone is familiar with, and that is a name, Satan or Lucifer, that the God entity does go under in this realm if you consciously worship him, shall we say, even though his probably original name would be more in the alternative history, okay? Because he's really a technological God from out there, shall we say. But anyway, I won't discuss that in this one. I want to just keep it simple, if I can. It's hard. But you see, this is a matrix, right? And by that I mean a system, a control system that is operated by a God entity that has many, many followers. In fact, every human being on the planet, well, I shouldn't say every human being on the planet, but the vast majority of human beings on the planet worship this God either directly or indirectly, mostly indirectly. They're not aware that they're actually worshipping the God entity, but they're serving him. So they're serving him and they're carrying out his instructions daily. Most human beings are doing this unconsciously, because every action that they do that serves his matrix or his agenda is the word they use, then you are serving him. But most people do this unconsciously. Every time, in fact, even most people that are even doing good deeds on this planet are serving his agenda, because everything is a fake and a trick. It's a mind game matrix Earth. There are really two Earths on this Earth at the moment, in a way. There's the matrix technical world of Satan, if you like, and it's a mind game world. It's controlled by mind games at a physical and a mental level, and it's controlled by technology now at a vast level as well. Before this, technology was always behind the scenes. Now it's actually in our life. And then there is the other Earth, the Earth that we used to have a long, long, long time ago. Now, even that Earth, as I've said before, was probably destroyed, but we still have an Earth here now that still has natural components in it. We still have trees, we still have birds, we still have nature. Human beings were meant to be, in my view, only in contact with nature, not in contact with the matrix, the technical world that they are all now in contact with. They have lost touch with their natural computer. They're with the technical artificial computer. Human beings' computer is meant to be nature and their own body and their own mind and their own spirit. That is the superior, proper computer that they were meant to develop to the highest level, which would be much higher than any of the technology, that even though the technology is very vast, much vaster than what we even realise, because the being, as I've said before, that controls it, has been around for 450,000 years, according to my information, and he has been around for a lot longer than that too. That's only as long as he's been here in our domain, to where we worship him and we follow his earth the way it is. But he was around a long time before that as well. But he has all the experience and knowledge at that time, whereas the spiritual human beings, we are now compromised. We live a short lifespan of 60, 70 years. Supposed to be 120 even when we were compromised, evidently, but originally we could have lived on this earth for as long as what we wanted to, and we could come and go as we wanted to too, because we were spiritual beings, we were free, and we would have developed our skills to where we could come and go the same as the technological God does, only that we probably could have done it without, we would have, well, we not probably, we would have done it without technology, whereas even the technological God uses technology, from what I can see, to get round, because if they come in spaceships and things like that with suits and things, which the evidence seems to point to that if you look at the tablets and different things which I've vaguely seen, then they have to use technology to even to travel, to get here, to get here, you know what I mean? Now, there again, I'm going off track and I'm getting beyond myself, because this is getting too complicated for me now, and I'm, you know, like I say, I'm limited myself. So what I am saying now is that the human being was supposed to develop with nature. That was their natural, that was their domain, that was our world. The earth is not ours anymore, okay? If you think that this earth is yours, you're wrong. It's not yours. You have no control over it now. It is now controlled by the matrix, by the God entity. And you are controlled by the technology, okay? And you serve only the God entity, consciously or unconsciously. Some consciously, most probably unconsciously, I'm guessing, but I don't know this because I can't get into each person's mind. But I know that not everybody does, because just the fact that there are individuals who the Matrix almost turns against, you can say, and uses humans to turn against them. That is, and I got a thing from someone yesterday, which I don't get anything from anyone, saying that they felt they were targeted, right, by the Matrix, shall we say, and by now I didn't get much more than that, but there was something about artificial intelligence, right? Well, this is right. Artificial intelligence is really just the technology. That's all artificial intelligence really is. It's just technology, but it can be very advanced, and it's much more advanced than what we realise, because we're all connected to technology, and the technology is all connected. And we're giving ourselves over to technology, we're giving our mind over to technology, so we're all trapped by the technology. We are mind controlled by the technology. And so that's why it's a lot harder for people to see that there may be an alternative at the present time, because even back many years ago, there was not the technology, and if people had been given the correct information, the truth, shall we say, they might have broke free from it to some extent, because they wouldn't have been controlled so much by the technology. A bit like, as I often use Jesus Christ as an example, even though I am not saying that the religions of the world, or that the Christianity, or that the churches, or that the whole religion that is around him is what I would believe in. No, I'm saying I would say the opposite. I would say that everything is part of the matrix. Everything is controlled by the God entity. So that has to be part of his thing. Now, you might say, what about Jesus? Well, I would personally say, this is only my own personal view, that he is not part of the religion. That if he existed, which he well could have, and quite likely all I'm going to say is I use him as an example, because whether he existed or not, what he said and how he operated is how human beings should operate. So I'm taking him to be the highest level of a human being. I'm saying that if he existed and what he said and did was true, even though the religion and everything that is around him is of the matrix and of the God entity, technological God that rules, not of Jesus himself, but because he was such an influence, I'm guessing, at the time, they incorporated him into the religion, because they're like, oh, right, he's gone now, but people still talking about what he said, and they believe it, and they think it's truth. We'll put that into our religion, and that way we keep everybody, that's right, in the matrix, and keep everybody worshipping the true God of the world, because he is the true God of the world. Satan is the true God of this earth. Even Jesus said that, because he controls it. You know, you can worship him or you don't have to. It's your choice, but he does control this domain completely. Even Jesus acknowledged that, because a bit like someone said on a video, Satan offered Jesus all the treasures of the world, every physical thing that was there, all his kingdom he offered Jesus, and Jesus did not take it. But he couldn't have offered it if it wasn't his. It is his. Everything on this earth is his, because we've given it to him, okay? Because I'm assuming that it wasn't his originally, but it's been his for a long, long time. And the only reason I use Jesus as an example was because, like I say, I think he would have been the highest example of a human being. He would have reached the higher levels of, the high vibration, as I've said before, where he knew everything. He would have been the greatest scientist probably because he just would have automatically known everything. Whereas at a scientific level on this planet, we have to do everything in a laboratory and fiddle around. That's how the technical God operates too, except that he's infinitely more advanced than what we actually are on this actual earth. I mean, the human beings that are here, or at least the human beings that we know of, that I know and that maybe you know. Obviously, behind the scenes, the technology is more advanced because we get given everything a long time after they've already developed things anyway. We know that. As I've said before, Dolly the sheep was cloned 30, 40 years ago or something, and they can clone human beings, but supposedly they haven't, all this sort of stuff. But, you can believe it or not. I like to say that I'm a common sense person, if nothing else, and to me, none of it makes a lot of common sense, but, that's just me, and it's for everyone to decide. But look, it's a mind control matrix, right? And it's all about mind games. Everything in it is a mind game. Everything is to trap us and to maneuver us a certain way. I've said this before. Now, I've said, excuse me, I've said before, look, there's this matrix world and there's still the natural world. But even the natural world now is largely taken over by the technology too. Now, that's another point that some people would say, I could be too far-fetched. Now, I don't have scientific knowledge of this. I don't have any proof of it. But I do have my own eyes and my own ears. And even at the physical level, even though, as I've said before, our thought creates reality, even at that level, even at just the basic physical level, going back to like 10 years ago when I believed the earth was just a round ball and we're all randomly here and there's only the physical body, there's nothing after death, there's nothing before, there's nothing. Look, even at that level now, I see nature acting strange. Not like it used to, because one thing about nature is that it always followed certain rules. The birds tweet when the sun comes up and tweet when it goes down. Now, I don't know about where everyone else is living or whatever, and most people just don't take any notice. Because I like nature and like birds and things, I notice these things, and I have noticed them for quite a while, even before I became aware that we're spiritual beings, okay? I still notice nature. And I did start to notice even a few years back that the birds and things were making noises at different times, unnatural times. Like in the middle of the night, vast numbers where I live even. Hundreds and hundreds of birds making a din. And I would actually say to myself, what is going on? Like, why are the birds making this noise at this time? Now, if I asked someone, which I did, different people would have different ideas about it. Most people just couldn't care less anyway. But even if you asked some people and they had an idea, they'd probably give you some practical reason as to why the birds were tweeting at an unusual time in vast numbers. I'm not talking about just one or two where they might be a bit restless or something like that. I'm talking about every bird in every tree along entire street, okay? Where in my view there would be thousands of birds, okay? And it certainly sounds like that when they're doing it. But people would give me a logical explanation of why this was happening. They might say, oh, well, look, the street lights are making them do this, or it's because, or something like that. I can't remember the explanations that people actually gave me at the time, and it still goes on now, by the way, but even then I thought, well, yeah, maybe, and I thought, yeah, it's a possibility, and I half bought it at the time, but I still thought, but there's always been a bit of this and a bit of that, and this hasn't happened before. So but anyway, what I'm getting at is that I think that even nature now is controlled totally by the God entity that controls the matrix, that the matrix itself is technologically even controlling the nature, which is quite possible with technology anyway. If they can completely mind control us and even physically control us, which is a fact too, um, then of course it's possible with animals and wildlife too. But that doesn't mean that I'm not saying that we shouldn't stick with nature. We should, because I think that nature still can, if it got enough good vibration from the humans, I'm guessing this, we could probably take that from the technology from them and get them back. But either way, they're not actually, I know that I have heard I have heard that there have been incidences over the world where a lot of animals have perished mysteriously almost, and even science has not really given an explanation. But generally speaking, from what I have seen personally, the animals and the birds and things like that, particularly birds, you notice, because everything is frequency, vibration, and energy, the birds can be controlled by the frequencies and the vibration too, just as humans operate that way, and everything in the universe evidently works that way, because they're frequency and vibration too. So if you have the technology to control the vibration and the frequency or whatever, you can control the wildlife and the animal, that too. And I think this matrix world is controlled in every single way. It's not just in a few ways, it's everything. It's totally controlled by Satan, if you like. He is the representative in the church, okay? That we would take to be real, the name, because we are familiar with Christianity and stuff, and we've heard of that Satan is the opposition to the to our supposed proper God, which Jesus Christ is supposed to be the Son of the God. Okay, well, look, see, this is another thing. If he is the Son of the God, right, it's not the God of the religions either way. But I don't think that that is the case. I think that he is like the highest that a human can be. And humans create with their thinking. So they create us too. And God implies creation, okay? Because we believe even that Satan created the earth. Well, he did certainly create this matrix we live in now, because we handed it over originally. I don't believe that he created the original earth, but it probably doesn't matter whether he did or not, okay? It probably doesn't really matter, because all I'm saying is that we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality. We're all connected, and we are not meant to be here in the matrix because we're spiritual beings, whereas the matrix is mainly technical and it's all controlled. I'm saying that if Jesus Christ existed, he was one that had beat the matrix, because and none of us can, because you can't beat the matrix while you're in it. Even he died in it. You can't beat the matrix in it. You can only leave it. He only beat the matrix when he left it, because he was offered everything by Satan and he turned it down. That's for you to decide, the same as he did. But obviously it was probably easier for him to decide to turn down all the wealth of the world and all the kingdoms and all the palaces and all that, because he knew that he could have more because he was at the higher spiritual level. Whereas if you're at the low spiritual level, like we all are, that would seem like you wouldn't be able to say no to it, because you'd be like, oh, my life is very poor and I've only got this physical world, and I can't get out of it. So, of course, you would think that was a great deal. In fact, most of us aren't offered us. There's only a few that are actually offered, even in the Matrix, all the riches and stuff, and they're the ones that will serve the Matrix for the most influence and power, etc., which is common sense, because if you're a god, you have disciples and servants, and you reward the ones that serve your Matrix the best. You're not going to reward the ones that want to be free and not really so much a part of it, shall we say, even though we're all part of it, really. But I'm sure I've lost track again. That's the trouble. But what I was going to say about people, anyone that has got the Matrix coming down really hard on them, if there is anyone there that's listening that's like that, where when I say the Matrix coming down hard, I mean to where you really are being attacked by the Matrix. In other words, Satan has decided that he's not too keen on you because, it could be anything. Mostly, my own conclusions now, after looking into it for a bit because I've had to, are that sometimes people can be trying to find the word. Am I going to say persecuted? I suppose I should, because really it is like that, because you're tormented by the Matrix, as we all are anyway, even people who are not particularly targeted by the Matrix, shall we say. But even the average person is still tormented by the Matrix, only in the sense that, it's a low vibration earth, so it has to be kept that way, and you can't have everyone being real happy, because otherwise the vibration rises, and then it becomes a different world. It becomes the vibration of the spiritual beings thinking, you see, because our thought creates reality. So in order to control the Matrix, in order to keep the Matrix as it is, it has to be at a lower frequency. It can't be higher, because that would make a different world, you see. Now, if Satan didn't like you, for whatever reason, when I say don't like you, I mean, you don't serve him well enough, or because he is, as it says in the Bible, he's a jealous God, he's possessive, he's paranoid, really, to be honest. He attacks some of us, even though we don't really even mean him any harm. We just want to be free and do our own little thing, and we don't actually care even if other people want to worship him. But that still is not good enough, because he will probably still see that as a threat, okay, in some way, which is unfortunate. And so you will be then made, particularly if, like myself, where, like I say, I've never been at a high vibration, but there have been little periods of time where maybe my vibration might have been ready to rise just a little bit. And this shows you how much control and how desperate, because you probably might not even have to raise your vibration very much to actually affect, because I know myself, I've never been in a state of nirvana or bliss, but I have noticed that whenever I've woke up to something, and like I say, if you got rid of someone out of your life that was keeping you at a low vibration, then you will just automatically rise a little bit. But then the Matrix, the God, will send something else to keep you down, to keep you at the lower vibration. And this has certainly happened to me over a lifetime. And as I've said before, nothing is random in this Matrix. From the day you're born, particularly for what I can gather, because I was thinking about this business of why are some people more oh, I don't like to use the word, but why are they more attacked, shall we say, by the negative forces? Because it's all positive and negative energy, all vibration, okay? It's hard to explain, I don't fully understand it, but why are we, some of us, attacked more than others? And, this is because, as I said before, maybe the vibration was just rising a little bit more awareness, even to wake up to, like I did in my life. I just only a few years realised that I had all my life been surrounded by a certain type of person. In other words, every single human being that had been in my life, from my parents right through, were all of a certain personality type, almost a slightly psychopathic type of personality, shall we say. And I wondered about this, but it was only when I was shown it by an individual that was close, that showed me how bad it can get, that it totally woke me up to it, because my own parents had been like this, but I had seen it, but I had not put a name on it. I had not put, and also it was more like this, right? I knew that my parents were different to a lot of other parents, and I knew that they were almost incapable of love, you could say. Actually, that's actually the truth. They were incapable of it. They were capable of doing helpful things at times and things like this, so you could misinterpret that to be love, but they're actually incapable of genuine, unconditional, free love. You were only loved while you, like the God of the world, while you follow their directions. And if you agree with their directions, that's fine. But if you don't agree with their directions, then you are going to be at odds with yourself, which is what happens to a lot of us, because you might say, well, look, I want to please my parents and I might love them, but if I don't please them and do everything they expect and want, then they're not going to give me their love. Of course, in reality, at just a few years ago, and when I say a few years ago, I mean literally a few years, after a whole lifetime, I realised that they were never capable of giving love. They did not know how to, and they did not believe in it, shall we say. They'd lost it. They'd thrown it away at some point. And this is not their fault. I blamed them then and thought, and felt angry. But if you realise that they were a victim of the matrix, like we all are, and that they were traumatised and conditioned to be that way, then that's part of the matrix too, that you will hate your family and blame them. So you're playing the game of the matrix. You're playing for Satan, shall we say, but when you think that way. But of course, how can you not think that way if you didn't have that knowledge, which I didn't, that they had a certain type of personality? I thought I knew they were a victim of probably their childhood and their upbringing, to why they were so sort of cold and didn't really have, the capacity for love. My father actually used to say, I don't believe in love, even though he was married, obviously, and whatever, but I didn't think that. I thought, well, you say that because you've had a hard life because you have, and I thought if you had been shown love and were shown it now, and maybe over a period of time you'll change. But actually, that's not actually possible once someone becomes, that's what I learned 2 years ago, that if someone becomes too psychopathic, that becomes so ingrained that they actually can't change. And they could be shown that there is love, and even be lavish love on them by someone. In other words, if you're in a bad marriage and abused or something, right, and then you meet someone who's really loving and kind, a bit like some animals, if they've been abused and then they get a good family, they change and they become loving too. But that's not possible with human beings. if they become too much that way, because it becomes ingrained, and they evidently, and this is just what I learned by looking at some videos and things, yes, the evil internet works good and bad, but it mostly works bad, because even though you get some true information, you can be sure that if you've been allowed to receive it, it will enlighten you for a bit, and then it will somehow take from you, because that's what always happens to me. You can't beat the matrix. This is weird. But what I'm saying is that, is that once they get too much that way, in that psychopathic type of frame of mind, which who understands the mind, but evidently then the so-called ego takes over to such an extent that that becomes their whole identity. So they can't let go of that identity and that ego, even if the truth and love was presented to them. Even truth, in fact, truth probably has a better chance, but even that, because these people are actually quite illogical too. In fact, it is actually a type of insanity, because they throw away logic for the ego. They throw away love for the ego, but they also throw away logic, common sense, and even some of their intelligence in a way for the ego. They use their intelligence like maybe in work. They could even be geniuses in particular fields, just like the God entity that rules this world is a genius at what he has set up on this planet to control superior beings, spiritual beings, and to keep them down at such a low level that they're robotic slaves almost, is a master plan and genius. But it's where they've put their intelligence and their genius into one way of thinking and exercised it. And that's what some psychopathic, narcissistic types of people can do. But for the most part, their mind, from what I can gather, a bit like the ones I've known, they still do not really have a universal type of logic or common sense or reason to put everything together. They're only okay while they focus their mind on a specific thing. They can excel in certain things that way, but they cannot comprehend the full deal of what they even do or what's going on. Because in putting that ego, that thing of I am, to such an extent, it's good to, I'm not saying it's bad to have a bit of an ego. We all do. But when it becomes too big, and even to where like like psychopathic and narcissistic people, and this is true of the people that I've known, it's all or nothing. I never could understand that. I was like, are you really willing to, is it always all or nothing? And I could never understand that. I experienced that, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, that you would be willing to die rather than give up something. If your ego can't give up a certain thing, you'd rather almost die. And that's how they get. And this is how the God is too. It's like, you'll follow me and follow my directions, but because it's that mentality, it's very much that ego. It is the worship thing. It is like, I'm right and I know everything, so you have to follow and you have to believe and you have to do what I say. And you can't diverge from that. And that's that thinking. And it doesn't matter how much rational stuff you put in to say, well, just maybe I would like to follow you a bit, but isn't this a bit dangerous, or isn't this a bit unfair? No, it's not like that. It's no, I'm right, you follow, or if not, you're out. It's all or nothing. There's no piece of the pie. It's the whole pie or it's no pie. And they're prepared to do that. They're like the two, as I've said, that old painting where the two swordsmen are fighting one another to the death with the swords while they're both going down in quicksand. And this is not only how the God entity tends to think, is like, but also how he's made us think, to where we're going down in quicksand, but we're still fighting one another. We're fighting over little things, over who's right, who's wrong, who's got the bigger ego, who's this or that, and we all do it. I've done it. I've done it I've done it with people like this for a lifetime. I've argued points and thought, oh, it's so important that I show them that they're wrong or I'm right or this or that. It's futile because they're not listening. It's like they're not listening because they're just not listening because their mind is not fully rational. They might be super intelligent and be able to talk on many things, just like I'm doing now. I hope you don't think I'm one of them. But look, and when I say one of them, it's these are some of the geniuses that rule the world are like this. You know, they're brilliant in some ways and they have intelligence, but they don't have they don't really have a rational mind. They'll actually say to you, I've known people like this, even my own relatives were like very much into the logic and the thing, but really they were not logical. Everything they did really was all about the ego. They would be prepared to die on a point half the time. You know, they wouldn't settle for a compromise hardly ever in anything. And this is very much it. It's very hard to explain. You'd have to realize the dealings. But essentially it defeats them and it defeats us. They defeat themselves and they defeat us. The God entity, he operates like this and he makes us like this, but he doesn't lose because he's not in our sight. You know, you can't, even if you disagree with someone or even if you think you've got someone that's not a friend, you can't actually beat or argue with them when you can't see them, when they're covert and behind the scenes. You see the results of their actions. And this is what I say. I see the world as it is, and I see that that is Satan's world. And I see the results of his operations and his systems and his work, of his work. Now, we are his work. You know, we are his work. And we work for him. So we are what we are now because we have entertained him. And when I say entertained him, entertained his thoughts, entertained his ideas. And whether you think that is good or bad is up to you. This is what I say. It's not for, you see, because we are free beings, or supposed to be, even though I don't think we really are now, but we still do have free will. We could still change, like, you could change your mind about what religion you want to worship any day of the week if you want to. You can change your mind about which direction you want to go. You can change your mind about what you thought was good before and think it's bad now. This is what I've done. A lot of things that I thought were good and that I liked, I now say, well, look, I still might even like them, but I don't think they're good for me. It's hard to let go of your identity. This is why the narcissist and the psychopathic people find it very hard to get back their full mind, because they're no different to me or you at all. In fact, they're probably more intelligent. So they're really, it's sad in a way, because some of them, if they did get back their awareness, they would be doing much better than me. And they're probably doing better than me anyway, because like I say, if you focus in a certain field, you could still be successful, but you're not operating as a human being. You are operating only as an ego, a false identity. That's what psychopaths and narcissists do because of trauma. They've done this because they've had to, because Satan has set up so much trauma in their childhood. And it set it up for me too, and for many others. This is why we have become addicted to things, why we make wrong decisions. All these things are set up depending on the person, because Satan knows your mind. He will set up what he can to direct you onto his path, okay? So, and even now, like whatever your weaknesses are will be used against you, in the sense that they will be used to keep you in the matrix. If you want to stay in the matrix and you think it's a great earth and you think you are at your full potential and you're doing wonderful, then fine. You worship Satan and you stay in the matrix and you will be stuck here the way things are going now, you could well be stuck here forever. Whereas in the past, every time you died, you had a chance to make a choice of either coming back or going to some extent. This is what the information's been given. Whereas in the future, if we become too technological and incorporate too much technology in us, we will lose our spirituality completely, and then we will be stuck here forever. Now, some people would see this as great because they want their longevity, because yes, our longevity has been taken from us by the very God that will give you the technology to extend your life. But there again, that's a choice. And this is only my opinion there again, because I do not believe that that this God entity created every human being as they are. I believe that we were already here, but what we are now is his creation, okay? What we are now is his creation. And as you can see, it's not great. I don't think it's great. In fact, I was just going to say that even myself, like at a personal level, like I always looked 15 years younger than what I actually was. At least this is what people used to tell me, and I was vaguely aware of it. And at one point, my health got to where I actually got really younger again. In other words, I was bad, and then I got really healthy to where I got all my energy back. And yet and that wasn't that long ago. But now the matrix comes down, and I've aged, and I would say at least 10 or 15 years in just the space of a year or two. And I'm quite consciously aware of this, and this is attacks by Satan because, I guess, because, well, as I've said before, sometimes it could be something quite simple. Because if human beings, particularly some human beings, if they're on the borderline of the vibration to where they only have to rise a little bit, and like I say, we're all connected. Now, this is not being as, because we're spiritual beings in a physical body, our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. Because we're all connected, if one person, supposing myself, was able to just rise my vibration a wee bit, that will be passed on to other human beings, provided the technology is not interceding too much, which it is now. But it still shows that the fact that this is what I concluded from my own personal stuff, was that if the vibration is so threatening, even if it's only rising a little tiny bit, and they have to come down and push the vibration down by physical and mental attack, shall we say, almost, then that really means that that connection must still be there, and that it can affect other human beings. Either that or the God has just gone very paranoid, which I would assume that, but there again, I may be underestimating, even though I have given the human being in its original state a big rap, shall we say, by saying that we are spiritual beings, our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. Because that actually is the total opposite to what I would have thought and ever believed. And it does mean that we are the power in the matrix, but we've given the power over to the God entity, to the matrix, and we're unaware of that. And we can't control it now either, because our subconscious is controlled, our thinking, most of our thinking is controlled subconsciously, and that is controlled by the matrix. Once the vibration is low, then they can control by mind thoughts. It's technological probably, but I don't understand it, but they can put the negative ideas into your head. In other words, if I was going to say, oh, look, I'm going to do something positive today that would raise the vibration of those around me, the God entity, if my vibration has not already got high, and I'm just ready to raise it by doing something positive that will make me feel good, but will subsequently make other people feel good as well, then the God entity will put a negative thought into my head and will create some sort of fear to where I won't do it. And this has happened to me through most of my life. I actually see it now to where every time I have went to do something that would have made me feel really good, to where I was consciously aware that it would raise the vibration. Not that I believed in vibration back then, I'm just saying that to where I would have felt good and comfortable. Even if it's something as simple as going for a swim, right? And I use this example because that's how simple it can be. It can be something quite simple. But that simple thing can change the world. Yeah. That simple thing can change the world or can change a lot of people. And if a lot of people, in other words, put it this way. If I go for a swim and I have a great affinity with water and it makes me feel really good and it raises my vibration, and because I'm connected to other people, then that raises their vibration, and then their vibration rises, and because their vibration rises, they affect more people around them and their vibration rises, and so on and so on. So you could literally change the world, which is, but if you go into that water and a shark gets you, or octopus gets you, or something gets you, or something happens, that experience. This has happened to me personally, by the way, so I'm not talking rubbish here. Then your vibration that was headed to go higher will not only not go higher, but it will actually go lower, because then you will have a really negative experience, and you certainly won't hit that water again. So Satan has eliminated a possibility for you to, because you won't go near the water again, you'll be frightened then. So I'm not going in the water ever again because a shark got me, an octopus got me, something bad happened. So this is how it works. This is what I've observed. This is nothing airy-fairy, this is just my life. And this happens to everybody every day. This is how it works. It works in nature, it works out of nature, it works here, there, it works everywhere. It is every aspect of this mind game, matrix, unnatural earth that should be natural, and even nature is being affected by the matrix, by the God entity. And look around, you can probably see that. And of course, that may well be part of the plan to actually, I suppose, change the world and make it more to his liking and some people's liking, no doubt. There may be some people who prefer to have something mechanical as opposed to something natural. This, in my opinion, is their mistake, because the mechanical might be very good, might serve a purpose, as has every advancement in our world. It's very hard for me to say to people, look, you shouldn't be driving a car, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Very hard, because they like it and they're used to it and they think it's good. And it is good at their limited level. At the limited level that we're allowed to be at, of course it's good. Because they don't think they can fly themselves, because that's been taken from them, you see. So this is how it is. And the natural world also, if it does get taken from us, then we will have less chance to ever access. The same with technology, where technology, if we use too much technology, then we get away from ourselves and we give it over to the technology. But it's the same if we get away from nature, or if nature gets taken from us, then that world will not be conducive to us raising our vibration and getting to the highest spiritual level ever. So we'll be trapped in a technical world, a Satan's technical world, where the technology will rule and everything will be done by technology, and we will not ever be able to go back to being spiritual beings, to where we can, to what I would say, to where we can advance spiritually. We will only be able to advance technologically. and we will be stuck here too. So that's the choice, I think. It's whether you want that world. And I think a lot of people, it's hard because, see, it's a trick, it's a big trick too, because even I don't fully understand it, because I'm sure there are lots of people who might even worship Satan directly even, and they might actually say, oh yeah, but he wants to save the world, like we're people that are for the environment and things. Well, that's because you're playing the game, the mind game of Satan's matrix. All that is a mind trick. Everything is set up. Even if you're doing something good, if you think, if I'm out there thinking I'm saving the planet, like doing stuff and even protesting and arguing with other people over saving the natural world, I'm playing Satan's game. This is the mind genius of this Satan that rules the world. You can't win because it's all set up to where it's his world. Always has been for a long, long time. Even Jesus knew that. Sure, if everyone woke up and rose their vibration, that's a different thing. But see, you're not even raising your vibration when you're angry about the planet. You know what I'm saying? If you're out there angry against other people because they're not, like saving the planet or putting their plastic cups in the bin or something like this, you're playing the mind game of Satan. He's got you. You think that you're saving the planet, you think you're doing some good. It doesn't work that way. Even good people are set up because it's low vibration. You're angry. You're against someone. You can't be against anything in order to at least have a chance if you do not agree with it, okay? If you don't like anything in this world, the minute you start fighting about it, particularly if it's against your fellow spiritual human being, because they will be set up that way, because we're all victims of it, because we're all in it. So, if if you're against littering and you see me accidentally drop a bit of tissue or something on the ground, and there again, I'm for trees, but I have to use a tissue like here to wipe my nose. We should be using handkerchiefs, that's true, because these cut down trees and things, that's right. But what I'm saying is, the minute I become a fanatic about that, I'm playing in Satan's thing. See, really, he's all or nothing, and in a funny kind of way, that's the situation he's set up. And to be honest, it would be all or nothing even with us in a way. You really can't almost compromise with Satan. He doesn't like it because he's a god of total worship and he does rule everything, so he has that right to demand that in a way, because we've allowed him to set up this planet as it is. And, if you think that you've got it licked, you can't. That example I just used was like that, because that's what occurred to me, because I've been thinking about all these things and I've tried things myself and I'm like, oh, but that's right. You can't win. Even if you're doing something good, it will be turned into something bad. It will be made into a low vibration. I've experienced that in my own personal life and I see it in the big world. And either way, even if you make, as I've said before, even if you make progress in this satanic world, it'll be one step forward and two steps backward. If you think you've made progress in any way, a cause, or you've made something better, you will then gloat and think, oh, I've been successful and I've defeated this, I've done that. But then it will be two steps backward. You cannot beat Satan in his mind game matrix world that he totally controls. You can't beat him at all. Don't be deceived. Don't think that you can make an input. You can do little things if you want to. You can take a stand. But until everybody or the vast majority starts to do that, you will just then become someone that will be more targeted. You will either be used doing good to trick everyone to get to fight in some way or get a cause or something, or you will, if you are just doing it yourself at a personal level and you're actually not under his control or doing it as an agenda and you're just living yourself, which is what I used to do basically, but you're still going against what he wants because the vibration might be rising, then you will be pushed back down. And every person from the day they're born is basically watched and monitored to see what they will do, what they would, and weaknesses are created in people that they would perhaps see as someone that if you're not going to totally serve them, then you will have to be kept down because, well, common sense, because otherwise, they don't want to rock the boat. You can't rock the boat in this world, You can only rock it a little bit, but if you start to rock it too much, because Satan knows that human beings are connected and that one person's vibration can affect another, etc., etc. So he knows all this because he controls the world and he knows more about humans than what they know about themselves. He knows more about me than what I know about me. Even though I'm talking all this and discovering a little bit now, he still knows infinitely more about me because he has made me what I am. He has put me in this position that I'm now in. And he actually doesn't care if I even see truth now because, it's been a lifetime and you're pretty much stuck because all the systems are set in place. Whereas even I might have had a chance to break a few chains, shall we say, 30, 40 years ago. If you get older and then also if you get sicker, and that's another thing too, because even all illness and stuff is also controlled by the matrix, because we do not control our bodies anymore, and also, we're out of touch with nature, and nature is our natural cure. And you can take that any way you like, whereas we are more into the technical pill popping cure type thing and technology to cure everything as opposed to curing ourselves or nature curing, which is the way that I think it was meant to be and the most effective way. And also, you must remember that if you're living in an alien world, because Satan's world is an alien world, because he is an alien, because he wasn't born here, he's not connected to the earth, not connected to the physical dirt earth, natural organic earth, shall we say. He's technology. Yes, so I lost my train of thought. You see, that's what you call a mind parasite. That's what you call the distractions of the matrix. And this happens all the time, even when you're trying to express something. We don't have clear thinking. And yes, our bodies and things, if you're in an alien world, if you're a natural spiritual being and you're in a technical alien world, figure it out yourself. That means that we are ingesting into our body technical alien stuff. We're breathing technical alien stuff. This is not our world anymore and hasn't been our world for a long, long time. So we're in an artificial environment when we are natural spiritual beings. So this is why we also get sick. That's just putting it at a very basic level. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. And as I said, everything is set up, controlled, maneuvered, manipulated. I will die, not when I decide to die. I will die when Satan decides that I die, okay? I will get sick when Satan decides I get sick. It should be my choice. In my natural world, my original world, I would decide these things. And I would have the power to. But we are not in our natural world. This is not our world. It is Satan's mind game, control Earth matrix. in every way. And because we don't even understand the technology that's around us and how the world actually operates, and even how just our thought creates reality. Like I say, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. I say that, and I see it to be true. Although, as I've said, we couldn't be more not creating what we consciously create. We couldn't be more disconnected mentally than what we've ever been. And we also are totally unaware of this because it's been taken from us. And I was unaware of it my whole life, as I was unaware of even the people around me. Like I said, the personalities and their mindset, and you're controlled by these people, and you argue with them, and you create bad energy and negative vibration, low vibration, by all this stuff. It's a total mind control. Oh, total mind control, mind. I was going to use a word that I don't like to use, but we are really totally screwed over in every single way. You know, we're screwed over by the fact that we're in the dark and we don't know that we're screwed over. We're in the dark because we don't know who controls things. We're in the dark because we don't know how things operate, and we don't understand the reality even of the world we live in. We're only told a certain amount, limited science to where, and even that is now starting to, because there again, as I've said before, they have to show you the truth, because otherwise our free will is taken, because the only thing we've ever had is free will once we invited other beings into our world and allowed them to manipulate and genetically alter us and all this sort of stuff. Once that happened, once that happened, we were at their mercy, and this is the world we now live in. Oh, geez, I'm getting mind screwed over myself. But basically, yeah, it really means that, and I don't like to use these words, but what other words can I use to describe what is basically a total chaos, total confusion, total crazy, insanity, duality world where everything is a trick, everything is a fake, everything, nothing real, everything set up, everything orchestrated. And if something goes even right, it will be orchestrated wrong. Because they have the upper hand. Because if a being knows your thinking, knows more about you, knows how everything operates, knows how the universe works, and we don't know any of this, but we're stuck like pawns in it, because we were meant to develop to where we just individually, each one of us, would know all these things. Instead, we have a God entity that is spiritually deficit, shall we say, controlling and knowing all the information. Yes, or has all the knowledge. They're very obsessed with technology and knowledge. But no sanity, no using it in a way, and certainly not using it because we are regarded as lesser instead of being more, which, I believe we should have been more, then it becomes a bit like the way we treat lesser things on the planet. And that also is a mimic or a carry over of the God, because the God, if you've got a certain God entity ruling your world, you will make your subjects, or even your children, shall we say, if you want to put it nicely, children like you. A lot of parents want their children to be like them. They want them to fulfill their dreams, their aspirations, shall we say. Well, that's how Satan is. He wants his children, his subjects, to fulfill his dreams, his goals. He doesn't like the ones that might have a few separate dreams or things of their own, because that's, so if you like that, if you say, yes, well, he wants me to do this, so I'm happy to do that, I like to do that, and if I'm rewarded for doing that, and I want to be stuck here for eternity in this heaven planet that is so wonderful, oh, no, this isn't hell, this is heaven. Yes, of course, by all means, do it. That is your choice. It's certainly not for me to tell you not to. And I wouldn't blame you if you did, because some of you are rewarded very well and have a very pleasant life on this planet. It's easy for me, if you're having a hell of a life, to say, oh, well, look, I don't want a bar of it. So, you know, but I don't know why some of us have been rejected so much in a way, because it's not like we've actually done anything, you know, like I myself, like I say, I'm no activist in any way on anything, never have been, just live my own quiet little drudgery life of being kept at a low vibration. And yes, that's right, if I decided to go for a swim, I'd meet something bad to where I wouldn't do it again, even though it could have been a pleasurable experience. So that's how limited, and that's my experience. So I'm telling you that, and that's just an example, but it does show that that some of us, if I guess it comes down to this: if you're not going to work fully for them, and if they think that then you'd, I mean, it must really mean, this is just the conclusion I've come to, that, like myself, if you're totally unbiased about everything, totally non-committal about most things on the planet, right? You don't follow particularly political people, but parties, you don't follow any particular religions, you don't particularly even prefer certain things over another. Yeah, sure, you might like some foods over others or that sort of thing, but even that, you don't think it has an influence. But maybe it does. You see, this is what I'm saying, is because the fact that you will be stopped from doing something a bit more pleasurable, but they're quite happy to let you go and influence in ways that don't matter. Like, nobody cares if I drink a Coke and that means that someone else will be drinking a Coke. You know what I mean? No one cares. Satan doesn't mind that. In fact, he's happy to that, because he might think Coke's good for humans to drink, because maybe it's maybe not so good, you know, that sort of thing. But you know what I'm saying. But if I go and do something innocent, yeah, like going for a swim, which will raise my vibration because I have an affinity for water, as he does too, by the way, and that makes me feel really good, then, I will definitely encounter something nasty in that water, so I don't go in it again. And that has been my personal experience. So I just use that as an example, as I said before. But what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to be even against the world or the systems or the things that Satan has created. You don't have to even be against them, because I've never been against practically anything. But even if you're just naturally doing something good, it might not be where you're, that's right, holding a picket sign and doing all that like we might now be doing, but it would be just naturally doing something innocent even. Because when I think over my life, I have done some little things just quite innocently and not done them for anyone else to see. So in other words, I'd be doing them where no one would be watching. So it's not like if I went into the water, I would be down at Bondi in with thousands of people saying, hey, this is wonderful, everyone come, even more people come in. No, I would probably do it where there would be no one around. But you see, that's why I know that our thoughts are connected. Because if I've done things where no one could see them, but they might still be influenced, that means that our thoughts are connected. So we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. And we live in a world, when I say a world, I mean like, say, a universe even, because Earth is still the same as everything else that's out there or whatever. It's all frequency, vibration, and energy. And as spiritual beings, we control the vibration by our thinking, by our feelings, by our emotions. And so if we're in a low vibration, we create and keep everything low. We're unaware of this. We don't have full control of any of our faculties anymore because we've given them over to the matrix, to the matrix literally. If you want to look at it that way, we're giving it over literally to technology and to what we believed, everything around us. We believe the information, we believe the stories, we believe everything. And even if we're skeptical and don't believe this and that, we probably still get at least most of it wrong because, you know, you have to believe something. You can't just say, I don't believe any of it, even though that's actually probably what we should do. We probably should say, hey, look, let's wipe a clean state. I said this in the, I think I was saying it yesterday when it got cut off. If I had been born and never went to school, got no information, would have been handy to learn to read and write because there again it's a necessity in the matrix because our thoughts are not transferred fully naturally because of our limitations kept low. But even so, I still say that if I had not had any education at all, nothing, and just been allowed to think for myself, I'd probably still be at a higher vibration and better today than what I am now because the information pollutes your mind. It corrupts your ability to just see things as they really are. It makes you think the way the matrix wants you to think. You don't just look out at things and say this is natural. Like for instance, I often look now at the city that I live in. And of course I have been made more aware of it than some others, I'll say that. But even if you think that you're totally free and you go outside and you look and you see the cars running everywhere, the traffic everywhere, the planes going over, the people walking around everywhere, going in, doing this and that, all these things that they think is so important. It really does look like, yeah, well, they say the rat race. And that there again, that's put there for you to see that, but we ignore it. But we are rats in a race, racing against what we don't know what we're even racing against. We're racing against one another, really. We're racing against, we're in society is a rat race, of course. It is a construct where we are told what to do. We're not free, we're directed. We're just little mice. Just like the mice being forced to run around the thing, which is what the scientists do in experiments because they have no respect for life in any form. Human beings as spiritual beings originally would have had such respect for life and nature that they wouldn't even do most of the stuff they do in the name of progress because there is no progress. There's been no progress since the day humans interacted with the technological Satan, God, whatever. No progress. It's all been the opposite. But we don't know that, we can't see it because we never reached the heights that we should have reached ourselves. So how could we possibly know that? If you haven't seen the pinnacle of what a human being should have been, naturally you will think that what we've got now is okay. Although personally I don't think it's okay even if I was the limited human being that I thought I really was and that I was never meant to be anything better than just, and yeah, that even if technology is better than me, I still say I don't think I want this world. That's just me. Maybe that's why I'm not so favourable with the God in some ways, because I still say, hey, there's still something terribly wrong about it all. You know, even though I might think, oh, this is a convenience and I can't do without it, which is true. But I still think I wish I could. And I still think we are very much dominated by all of this. And I still see that if I look just even around my local area, I can see how things have not really improved. They've actually gone down. But everyone's got more technology. But the actual society, the actual community is totally mind screwed. They don't know what they're doing, most of them. They're just walking around with their mobiles and things. They actually look like just like I used to think with the TV and stuff. The only good thing about technology to see the truth, because technology does provide you with the truth if you can only realize that everything that you think is probably true in the technology is false, and everything you think is false is more likely to be true. If you can reverse it, because as I've said before, this is a duality reverse world, because Satan likes everything in duality and reverse. This is in his doctrine, you could almost say. Is that the right word? It's like the Bible. It's his Bible. Well, the Bible is his too. It's only Jesus that stands out to me as something that doesn't fit in a lot of the Bible. But even the Bible still is a history, even though, yeah. But it fits also the alternative history. But see, most people don't have the alternative history. So we are told the truth, but we are lied to because we're only given a little bit of truth too. You know what they call the lie of omission? People used to say that to me years ago. You're not just a liar by what you say, but you're also a liar if you only tell people a little bit of the truth, but you don't tell them the whole story. So therefore, they're still going to be misdirected. In other words, if I know a lot more information about someone, but I only tell one bad thing or one good thing or one thing that is going to paint a false picture, I'm not lying, but I'm not telling the whole truth. I'm not giving the correct picture. Like if I knew someone was bad, right? And I shouldn't say bad, but I know they do naughty, wrong things or something, but they also still have some good points. So I tell someone else their good points. I'm not lying, because they do have those good points. But I'm not telling them about all the bad stuff that will bring that other person down, low vibration, etc. You see, it's like that, and this is the world. Satan tells people the truth, but he leaves out a lot. Omission, and also he leaves out a lot by omission. He doesn't tell you the whole truth. And so therefore you're not getting the true reality if that's the case. That's common sense. Like I say, there are lies of where you directly lie, and then there is the omission lie, to where you give truth but only a limited amount of it and the rest is left out. Or there is truth mixed with lies too. There again, well, it's the duality world. It's a mass confusion. And human beings, I think this is what I've now realised, is that human beings, once you become a little bit aware, obviously not at the level that we're supposed to be at, but even a little bit, you will start to be able to, if you can get away from the information and the programs, because it's all programming. Information is just programming human beings to think a certain way. It's like the programs on the TV. But if you can get away from and just become a little bit aware, you will start to be able to what they call discern. So you will actually, if you're presented with truth and lies, you might be able to say, well, look, I don't really even need more information. I can just tell that that is a lie and that's the truth. That's because you're accessing a little bit more of that spiritual ability, because I believe, as I say, we're spiritual beings, but the spiritual being at its highest level knows everything. So that's not just like being airy, fairy and spiritual. They know how things work, and their intuition is so strong. As Einstein said, intuition is more important than anything, and he was a scientist. They will just know what is the truth and what isn't. You won't have to prove it to them. And they won't, and I won't be able to prove it to you either. That's the unfortunate thing. You just say, well, I just know it. I just got that vibe or whatever, but that intuition will be correct. That's because human beings are really much more than what we are now, and we were meant to be much more. But that's hard to prove because we're in the logic mind. Even though, as I've said before, logic really has nothing to do with the way this world is ruled by the God, because genius as he is not logical. He's only logical to his own ends, but not really logical in looking at everything, because everything is created is chaos. And that's how I see the world. It's total chaos in every way, at small levels and big levels. Even if you think you're living in a good community where everything appears to be order, that order is really chaos, because you are mind controlled. You know, there is no that if you think that it's good to be safe and mind controlled and everything in order, everything planned, everything set up, everything maneuvered to where you don't think at all, then you will be fine with this world, and you will be serving Satan, and you might even be, I was going to say you'd be content, but if you were content and happy, your vibration would rise and you'd wake up. So clearly you're not really content anyway. You'll be suffering it. You'll be thinking, oh, it's better than nothing, and you'll be doing it. And also you'll be so mind taken over that you'll be almost unaware. In other words, you won't probably even know whether you're happy or sad. You'll just be limbo. I'm trying to find the right word, like in limbo, you know, whether you're neither one thing nor the other, and you actually don't think and you don't feel. You don't think, you don't feel, you don't know, you don't have any emotion about it at all. But quite frankly, I think when you get to that point, which is the point of how a lot of human beings nearly are, and to where I would have even thought maybe it's desirable at times because it's such a hell, once you get to that point, you are as good as dead. You know, so even if they extend your life and offer you 1,000 years, do you want 1,000 years of nothingness, of oblivion, of not being aware of nothing, and you're dead? And this is why this is hell in this planet, because a lot of people are dead, really. They're safe, they're still breathing in their diseased, pathetical bodies, which no doubt they might offer you a better body, but you're dead. We all are. And I've lived pretty much a kind of dead life. You know, you think you're fighting and you think you're doing this, but, you know, if you're just programmed and you're just doing what you're expected to do, and even if they let you do something for a while and you're not aware that you're still serving the God, even if you think you're doing something, as I say, good, you might be, like I'm saying, want to actually break and change this world to where it goes back to the natural world. You might even be against a lot of the things that I'm saying are not good. But you really will be hard pressed to actually break from it unless we can really raise it up to where everyone starts to think that way. It's no good one or two people they just become the laughing stocks, the crackpots, the fanatics, you know, they'll even put a word on you. You know, you can't beat something that we have now set up. You know, once you have set up this world as it is and allowed it to be as it is and allowed Satan to totally rule every part of it, because it's not a choice anymore. It's not a choice anymore. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice between a good God and a slightly naughtier one, or whatever, whichever way you want to think of the gods, okay? You don't have that choice anymore. There is only one God that rules the world, and he is Satan. That's the name I put on him, but he is a technological God who would have another name, but that's as we would know him on here, and he's went through other names, no doubt, down through the centuries. But and don't forget, there's probably more than one too, but they've fought out over the years and different things. I'm not going to go into that. There is a history there, that's what I'm saying. So there again, I mean, I didn't know about the other history, but there is the alternative technological kind of history of the gods as opposed to the Bible, but both of them actually, almost from what I can see, tend to mesh. In other words, they don't really dispute one another. You see, as I've said before, oh dear, and I'm not feeling so good myself. Oh, my throat too. No doubt I'm talking too much, so he's like, be quiet. And maybe I should, you know. I'm not trying to be disrespectful even to any entities that do exist. And if you're saying, well, maybe she says that because she's frightened. Well, yes, of course, because, you know, I am not at the Jesus Christ spiritual level. I'm down here like everybody else. So of course I would be frightened of an almighty God that controls everything, and if he gets pissed because you say something that maybe he may or may not like or whatever, of course, so, and then the fear, that brings the vibration down. So even my videos, like I'm, I might be fear while I'm making them, so therefore I'm not accomplishing what I should be, and this is just the sad truth. Like I say, it's, do not be deceived and think that you have any choice anymore. The only choice you probably might have is to say, well, look, you're going to be yourself, and still do as much as you can of your own thing, under great difficulties, no doubt. And you will not have a lot of friends doing it either, because most people are like part of the system, part of the matrix, and you only have to look around to see that if you allow something, even if you don't agree with it, you're not going to fight against it. You see what I'm saying? So even if, like myself, I was like that. Like I didn't agree with a lot of the rules and things that they'd bring in, but I wasn't one that was going to fight against it. I'd just say, oh well, don't think that's so great, but I guess I'll adapt to it. And that's pretty much how a lot of people are. But that's probably the mistake we do make. But the funny thing is, I see so many people, which kind of distresses me, because I will see people object to some things that are really not that relevant. They'll object when they're playing the game, the mind control game of the Matrix. They'll go and object to something that they see around, and they'll sometimes even be successful. But all they're doing is working for the Matrix. Whereas if it was something important that really affected their health, really affected their actual real long-term future, they would probably not even notice it or do anything about it. It's kind of funny that way. I could use examples, but so it's not like human beings are totally complacent. They're just misdirected, a lot of them. Whereas I, quite frankly, I'm out of energy and almost complacent because I'm out of energy. But a lot of human beings still have vast energy, but they've put that energy into things where they can't see that they're still defeating themselves and working for the continuation of what they're probably trying to change, which is kind of hard to explain. You'd have to, like I used that example before, because if you're fighting, once you start to fight, you're creating that negative energy anyway. So even if you're fighting, as I say, in a good cause, you probably, if you're going against your fellow human being in a good cause, then you are defeating yourself and you're working for the Matrix. Put it that way. If you're doing something good, but you're doing it quietly and you're not harming any other human being, but you're still setting something right, then you could well be doing something that might work against the Matrix and might benefit the world. But the minute you become like where you're against something and you're against other humans, whether they're right or wrong doesn't really matter. And that's the trouble, is that we all think it does matter. But that is used by the genius technological God that rules the planet to create the low vibration stuff, because he understands how things really work. We are just players. And we don't know that we're just players either. So, we naturally play along, good or bad. And we're very much into the duality, the right, wrong, and that's all directed by the God anyway. Like even most of the causes that we have, they're all directed by the God, because he creates this world. He directs it. If it's in a shit thing now, that is because it has been made that way. And so then if we fight one another to make it not like that, figure it out yourself. We're just playing the game. It's like you're punching at air. We're all punching at air. We're all running around in circles, and we are. And the truth is there, but the truth is in the places where we don't expect to see it. I've realised this recently. If I'm, as I said before, if everything that I watch on my TV that I think is false, if I start to reverse the reverse thinking of the God and say, hey, that fantasy thing is really what is really happening outside of my eyesight, outside of my realm. That is the other world. That is the world of the God. That is the technology that is really there, etc. Then I would be a lot closer to the truth. But can you deal with it? Well, that's another question. I know I've had great difficulty dealing with it. To see your whole world shattered in front of you, everything that you have thought was true to not be true, it's not easy. In fact, it's not only not easy, it can almost be impossible, and that's why I can understand how even the individuals that I've mentioned, the personality types, it's much easier to go back into yourself and say, hey, look, that's rubbish. Just leave me alone. A bit like that Neo character in the Matrix when he wanted the truth, didn't he? He took the red pill. He wanted to see the truth. He wanted to know the truth from what I can see. But then when he was shown the truth, that he was in a mind control matrix, he's like, get me out of here. I don't believe any of this. I want to go back. Don't want. And yet he was a truth seeker. See, it's not very unless you really have got to an enlightened level to where you can truly see it, and none of us are at that, it's devastating. So it is difficult. And then what to do about it, that's right too. So it's not, it's a mind game and a total mind, everything. Just total mind devastation, really, of the human, of us, of me, you, anyone that is remotely human. And even that's another video too. Like, as I said, I should finish and say that not everyone on this earth is all the same. We do have different types of so-called humans. We might all look the same. Oh, no, we don't even look the same, but you know what I mean. We might all look, head, etc., and arms, whatever. We look human, but there are different types of humans, even from what I can gather. This is what makes it extra hard too, because like I've said before, even the different psychopathic type personality, that's another thing, because you don't realise that those people will always be working against you because they have an opposite complex mindset, as the God does too. They have that duality mindset. In fact, they will argue over things whether they believe them or not, whereas you and I, if we're really human, we would probably only argue with something if we got the emotion behind it to where we really feel it, whereas psychopathic types of people will argue just to win because they're very much into that competitive ego type thing, which is also the God and the Matrix. We've all been there. I've been there too. I've done that too. So don't get me wrong. I've entertained the ego and hubris, so-called hubris, which is like where you operate under the I am, the ego. I'm better. I have to prove I'm good. Have to prove. Once you do that, we've all done it. But more importantly, we think that is the world because we really love the world in a funny kind of way, and we actually want to impress other human beings. We want to be liked and loved by other human beings. We almost entertain that too for that reason. So it's kind of sad in a way. But some human beings actually do not really love other human beings. As I've said before, the psychopathic type, they don't have that capacity. It's still there probably, but it's so suppressed. And their mind and their ego and their intellect has basically took over that. Took over the love. There's no love because they've not experienced it either. So it's not their fault at all. Just as it's, and I've not been that way. I wouldn't say that I've been the most loving, because if you haven't experienced much love, you're not going to know how to be loving, and you're going to think that you're going to feel treated, you're going to feel resentful because you're going to think only other people get love. Why not me? And it's very much like that. It's there again, it's all part of the mind game of the Matrix, of the God that rules it. Total in every way, it tricks and makes people behave and create a world that they really don't want. But they think that it's okay, and they think they do want it because they can't imagine anything else, as I can't. You can't imagine what it would have been like if we had evolved naturally, had all our abilities, and the world was ours, and we were in sync with the actual earth and nature. And we wouldn't have, and we would have respected it, because it would have been, we were meant to be one with nature, not one with technology. That's what I think. Instead, we are one with technology and the systems and the matrix, when we should be one with nature, even though nature also has now been incorporated into the matrix, which is extra difficult, to say the least. You know. If you dwell too much on this, it brings your vibration down even more, which also serves the matrix and the God entity. See, so like I say, it's a lose-lose situation. Okay, but that's why I often use the example of Jesus Christ, because I think that as a human, you know, he came here in human form, as we all do, because we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality. We're all connected. So we come here in this physical form, even though we buy into the fact that, and I said fact, yes, even I said fact. We buy into what we think is the fact, that is all we are. And I certainly did all my life. Because, yeah, we believe that. We are, even now, I still think it's half a fact, and yet I know it's not. Because I haven't experienced the high level of spiritual level that I'm meant to be at. All I experience is the body. And that the body is the matrix. The body is Satan's world. The body is the material world. Even though we create it with our thinking, directly and indirectly, by every form of control, manipulation, maneuvering, by the God. And it's all around us everywhere, like it said in the movie. The matrix is everywhere, and that's the truth. It's everywhere. Everything you touch, everything you see, everything. Some things you might be more aware is more matrix-like. You might think technology, yeah, it is a bit matrixy, it is a little bit artificial. Yeah, well, it is. But so is everything, because you're still mind-controlled even in the natural world now. No one is above the matrix. Or there might be a few people, I don't know. Jesus Christ probably was. If he existed and he was the stuff he said, as apart from the religion that he's connected to, then yes, he was spiritually at a high level, at the highest level, and had removed himself mentally from the matrix and had extra abilities because of that, because he'd reached a high level, and yes, could probably come and go as he wanted, but he walked amongst fellow human beings to show them that, to show them what they were meant to be. He wasn't here to show, oh, look, worship a God, mend your ways, be good to, he was like, be good to one another, because he was like, hey, we're all connected, so of course we should be, you see. But no, it wasn't, he wasn't like saying, oh, there's a, he probably was saying, perhaps you should ignore your God system. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. That's probably why he was told to leave early, but, well, he wasn't told to leave early, I know, but you know what I'm trying to put it nicely, because even the Jesus story and the end of it all is quite offensive in a way. And it's meant to be. It's meant to shock people. It's meant to, lower people's vibration in a funny kind of way. I know it does me. Even if you believe that someone giving up their life and dying on a cross will give you some sort of salvation. I would I haven't thought about it, but I would beg to differ on that in the sense that it hasn't changed the world. It hasn't saved anyone. The world is worse now than when he walked the earth. And if you think that someone has to be tortured and killed in a barbaric way, you know, and if you think that your God sent their only son, Jesus, to do that for you, then you're part of the matrix system, because no loving God would ever send their son to die in such a way for an ungrateful bunch of people that that actually let him be killed, for a purpose of saving them when they clearly have not been saved. There's no sense to that at all. No, if you really think about it. A loving God would not do that to his only son. That is a sacrificial God. That is the God that likes sacrifice and that demands worship. That's not something that I would personally see the actual Jesus man, whether he existed or not, as, and either way, I don't think that would be a God that would be in love with the human being. That would be a God that sees the human being as his children, all right, but naughty children, children to be chastised, children to obey all the rules. And that's how some parents treat their children too, you know. It's how school treats children, you know. So, at any rate, I'm getting a bit exhausted now, so I probably rambled and made no sense as usual. And, you know, it's a burden living, I think, in this world, but, you know, that's all you can do is try and, I would say that the people who, you know, once again, it sounds corny, I suppose, but if you can go a lot more inward and just try to discern for yourself what you think is right and wrong, because I've said before, it's no good following the matrix or the rules or the community or the society, okay? Just ask yourself the question, should I be doing this? Do I want to be doing this? Do I think it is right for me? If you think it is, okay. That's really all you can really do, I think. And like I say, the knowledge is there, but it's in the places where you wouldn't look for it. In other words, if you are looking for truth and you're also looking for a way to survive, even if you don't agree with everything, you will need to look, you will need to be aware that if you are free thinking in any way, you will particularly be harassed, shall we say, by the matrix, because they will want to keep you right down. And they probably might even prefer if you go. But that also will depend on what use you serve, I would think, and what they, and also that whether they want other people to notice this sort of stuff too, you know, like, because it's all an illusion, and you know, it's very much an illusion of appearances in this earth, on this world, to where we are seduced, and the average person is seduced by the illusion of what they think is real, and by the illusion of freedom, by the illusion of, you know, the free choice. But the free choice is really not as much there as what we think, because we have let that free choice be taken a lot from us by the fact that we have now allowed the so-called societies that we live in, the communities that we live in, where it is very much like, you know, you have to, we judge and we think that it's very hard to explain, but we're essentially just being programmed into all of this. None of it is really our thinking. None of us are free thinkers. Some of us might see a bit more of this, but we're not free thinkers. We can't be, because there's just too much programs put into us. There's too much information being bombarded. Every move we make in this earth now, from the smallest to the biggest, is basically what we're told and programmed to think. And we react to that. You know, we do everything based on that. Even I might be making some wrong moves because I might think, oh, this is a good idea. But I could still be serving the agenda in a way, or the God. And, you know, because I might think that it's a good thing. In fact, probably the only time you're really doing something good in this world is where you know that you're really sacrificing your existence here for something. Because if you're allowed to get away with something, chances are they don't mind, and it will serve their purpose. Because, you know, if you're dealing with a God, if he doesn't like what you're doing, he can just take you from the mate. He can just take you out. That's a fact. Not only technologically and physically is that possible, but like I say, that, you know, you can certainly get human beings to work for you. You only have to say, look, that person's this or that, and you can get plenty of human beings to get rid of another human being, or to make their life a misery, either way, you know, to where they'll probably want to go themselves, you know. And this is how it works, you know, and it's just the way it's always worked. And but humans still have a choice. But all I would say is that I would like to see it to where humans had a choice, but actually knew most of the truth, to where at least they're making what they call a informed choice, but a true informed choice, a truth informed choice, not an informed matrix choice. Most people are making choices all the time, but they're not really truth choices. They're information choices, confusion information choices, truth with lies, truth with the omission of the whole picture, truth with the omission of some points and only other points. You know, and unless you really are thinking all the time and watching all the time, and to where your mind's exploding with concentration, to where you're stressed and at a low vibration like myself, you'll actually buy into it and you'll fall for it and you'll make the wrong choice. But either way, it's a lose-lose situation, because, like I say, you're going to be sick one way or the other, and but still, what can you do? Because that's the pickle that we've got ourselves into now, over a long, long period of time, I believe. And we've gone so far away from what we were meant to be, and don't even know what we were meant to be, and don't even know what we really are anyway. Most people don't, as I don't know that they're spiritual beings in a physical body. Their thought creates reality, and they're all connected, and that everything is frequency, vibration, and energy, and that we have input into that. We have input on the other human beings around us. We are meant to be just at a thinking level, almost controlling this natural world that we live in, this natural planet, which also is not natural now. Most of it is not. It is all technical. And it is ruled by the technological God entity that runs, controls, operates through human beings and every form of technology imaginable in this domain. And most of it we're totally not aware of, because most of what goes on, there's two worlds even in this world. There's even actually on this earth that is here now. We still have like almost two civilizations. We have my civilization, the one I live in, the real hell world, and then you have the other civilization of humans, shall we say, or human-like human beings. Some of them are so far away from their spiritual human business that But of course they do worship Satan, you see. They work for him much more directly. And they believe that he is the true spirit, as he once was, evidently. That's if you go from a biblical point of view. But either way, he's a technological being now and uses technology and is advanced technologically. And that is very different to the spiritual human being, I think. But having not met him, I can't speak 100% on that. And I'm sure that I would be impressed if I did, but at the same time, it is different, I think, to what the human was and still is, but even though we are corrupted and now at the lowest level that we could possibly be at. We have not evolved naturally, we have devolved unnaturally and continue to do so. And will continue to do so if we are in touch with his technical mind game matrix world that will seem to offer so much instead of in contact with the natural spiritual world. This is hard to get your head around and hard to comprehend and hard to actually accept, and also even if you do accept it like me, you feel very distressed because you're like, well, hey, I don't want this to be true because what can I do about it? I'm stuck in this technical mind game matrix, Earth, with very little of nature now inspiring me. That's if I can even get to it, which I know I find hard to. Lucky, a few trees, and then when you are with the trees, you've got the traffic and the planes and everything disrupting your frequency to where you can't benefit from nature anyway. And then the rest of the time you're like, oh, this is real hell, walking around these streets with all the noise and stuff. Let me plug my earphones into my thing and get some of my satanic music into my head so that I don't have to deal with how unpleasant the vibration and the noise is round. And I don't blame people for doing that. The only thing is they're getting away from nature by doing that even more. And they're plugging in what I call satanic music, because most of the music today is just noise. It's not giving them a good frequency, see, because we're all frequency, vibration and energy. So, that to me is just basic, even though I don't fully understand it. If you're listening to music that has a vibration that is not going to make your vibration rise, then you're defeating the purpose of listening to it. Even though it might be quite clever music, it might be very talented people that make it, and it might even have some messages, I don't know. But whichever way you look at it, you're probably under a delusion about it, because everything in this world is a delusion, is a fake, and is designed to keep you a certain way. Because otherwise you will drift out of this domain. You will not stay here. And you will be, yes, like Jesus, be in this world, but not of this world. Well, that's no good to the God that rules it. He wants you to be in this world and of this world, very much so, more and more. And if he thinks you're drifting spiritually away to where you can get something from yourself and raise yourself up a bit, then you will have to come back. And he will bring you back. And the only way he can bring you back is by making the physical world seem even more real, to where you are engrossed in it, to where you are enthralled by it, to where you are obsessed with it. Instead of saying, hey, if I advance myself spiritually, I could have been able to perhaps, maybe I wouldn't have needed a car. Instead, it's like, hey, get working in the matrix so you can get yourself a really nice flash car. You can't blame people for thinking that's good, because that's the best that they think they can do, because then we're not aware that we should have been able to do so much better. Satan's world's okay if you think of it that way. Even though personally I don't think it's okay in any way. I don't see very much good, but some people do. Maybe if you're particularly wealthy and you can buy all these flash things, then you might say, oh, Satan's world's great. But even then, I still think that it's still taking a lesser substitute. Of course, if you're in the secondary world, in other words, the world that I don't see, the world of the really super rich, that have even more advanced technology than what we do, and so therefore they might be able to get a rocket ship to Mars or something, or to the moon or whatever, or do more other stuff that we don't see and can't do. So they're still better off. They're much better off than us. And they would think, oh, the technology is fantastic, because it would be fantastic by our standards. But even they are still that's still a comparison, because I'm sure that the God entity knows that even that is still limited by comparison with what the human maybe should have been and should have been able to do. But, it's all a comparison, and it is all a trick, and it is hard to get your head round. And it does seem like we have been very deprived, I think, very deprived indeed, and still deprived, and much more deprived than what we've even been in the past. Because, like I say, if Jesus walked the earth now, I don't think even he'd get a look in, to be honest, because I think people would be too busy. Some people would listen, obviously, some, because that's why I say some people are more even if they don't know it themselves, some people are at a higher spiritual level, I think. Maybe every time you even do something a little bit good, without doing it to where you're doing it for some gain or to where people are watching, and you're just doing something naturally good, maybe that is still a spiritual being who wants to be a bit higher. And then Satan won't probably like that, he might not like those particular ones. And so that's why they get a bit more harassed. And then other people won't like it either, because if you're part of the matrix, you'll be much more, like if you're very psychopathic, you're not going to really like life too much. You don't really even like your own life. That's the bad thing. So that's why I say all of this is negative, because humans should like themselves in their own like. I'm not talking about ego, where you just love yourself and you're kind of, it's very hard to explain, but where people are obsessed with the ego, often they actually really don't like themselves, because they have so much to prove and they have to dominate. A bit like Satan himself, he has to have all the admiration and stuff. Whereas a human being that just is satisfied with themselves doesn't have to prove too much. They could be, quite happy living as a hermit, because they know at least, and most of us are not like that. That's right. We can't almost live without affecting others and showing that we're better, that type. It's all part of the trick, I think, But I'm getting tired, so I better close off even low. And I'm sure I'm boring you something terrible. So anyway, if anyone's got, and if anyone is harassed or whatever, because I think there must be people, that's only because you actually do have some spirituality, because you have actually risen a little bit above, I don't like to say above a few other people, because we've all been trapped in this. We've all been at low levels. And, even the stuff I'm saying now, I don't give myself any credit, but maybe I have always had a bit of a liking for a bit of nature and stuff like that, only in the sense that I was never in contact with it. I was kept from all the things that I really liked most of my life, via Satan and the Matrix. But in recent times, I touched on some of those things again and realised how much I liked the living natural world. And but like I say, every time I tried to get in contact with it, I was always squashed down, be like a ton of bricks coming down on me. Of course, I thought it was all random and accidental, but there's nothing random or accidental in a world that is controlled, that is ruled, that a particular entity, Satan, whatever you like to call him, actually has full dominion over it. It is his. It may not have been his originally. That's there again, I diverted because I don't think this is the original Earth. I believe it has been destroyed many times. So therefore, this is not just like an evolution. We're not here as an evolution, I don't think. No, we have been changed and manipulated, at points, and we're still being changed and manipulated all the time at a technical genetic level. We're not aware of this. I believe it happens because nothing is natural. If human beings had no knowledge and did everything naturally, right from the start, they would be the most evolved beings right now. And they would freely rule. When I say rule, even rule is the wrong word. They would just have everything. Because spiritual beings don't rule. Technical, godlike beings rule. Human beings don't desire to rule. A proper God, not a proper God, but a loving God that actually likes you and cares about you and wants you to be your best and to be happy and at a high vibrational spiritual level. He doesn't rule, he doesn't dominate, he doesn't demand. He lets you do your thing. He lets you be the best that you want to be. He doesn't say you have to be like I want you to be. Like I say, if you're happy with that, if you have parents that tell you you've got to do this, but you like doing that, I mean, probably we all get so brainwashed that we almost wouldn't know what we like because, I mean, like, it'd be a bit like I might like particular things when I was a child, right? And if I had been lucky enough to have parents that actually nurtured those things that I liked and encouraged me and helped me along that line, I'd probably think, oh, that was great. But, I still could be serving the matrix because if that talent will then be used when I grow up to serve the matrix and to seduce people for Satan, for his world, and influence them to work more for the matrix with my ideas, then, you see what I'm saying? So either way, but I could be happy with that. So it's very hard to tell human beings that almost everything they probably do is probably set up, and that even if they're happy and serving the God happily and consciously, they could still be being deceived, but I don't know. And that is their free choice. I would say that they're still luckier than the rest of us, so I wouldn't blame them, and that is their choice, and it's everybody's choice. Well, like it or not, you have to, I suppose we have to accept, this is the sad thing, I've never been a person who likes responsibility, so I find it a burden. I've always found responsibility a burden. I don't want to be a judge. I don't want to have to discern and judge, but now you find that you actually have to. You do actually have to almost decide in a funny kind of way. And that's probably something that I found distressing because I've never wanted to be someone that's had to make big decisions. I've never wanted to actually reject anyone or anything. But, if it takes us all down, you almost have to say, well, look, I don't particularly want to destroy anything, but at the same time, you might have to reject some things. And, some people don't like to be disliked even by, I've always been the sort of person that didn't want to be disliked even by someone that didn't like me or someone that I didn't care about. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. So that's a mindset, and that's probably an implant, no doubt, from Satan, because why would you care about someone that you don't care about? Like, in other words, it'd be like, why should I care about someone I don't really know, or that someone that is totally different to me and they're not going to do me any harm or good, but I still don't want them to dislike me? That's kind of ridiculous, and yet that's how I was and still am to some extent, because you can know something, but getting rid of that, what I would call an implant, that's an idea, a mind thing that comes into your mind and makes you feel and think that way. Because if you're at low vibration, like I say, Satan can implant any ideas. You have the choice to entertain them or reject them. But if you think they're your ideas, you will entertain them. And if there's fear associated with it, which often there is, then you will go for it because you'll be too afraid to reject the idea. And if you don't do that when you're young, as most of us haven't, that idea and those addictions, those implants, those things will hold you down for all your life. They'll always be there. They'll come back over and over again and they will influence your every move to where you will be doing things that you wouldn't have normally done, things you don't even want to do. And yeah, and you will not have the life that you should have had, that's for sure. And then one day you'll sort of say, hey, what was it all about? And if you ever get, like I had almost got to the point where I almost was like, oh, well, look, yes, I've made all the mistakes and all the people I've known have been wrong, wasted time and not cared less about me and worked against me, basically, been working for the Matrix, shall we say, working for Satan. And that's very hard to accept, particularly if they're relatives. Very hard to accept. But then you sort of say, well, look, now at least I can be free because I'm aware of that. And I won't associate, I will try to keep my distance from those type of people in the future because now I know that. I now know that it's a waste of time, that you can't change them, you can't help them, and you won't help yourself by doing it. You'll only bring yourself down. You'll be wasting your energy, you'll be at low vibration, etc., all that sort of stuff. And you just consciously become sort of aware of that. Even like at that time, I was not aware of vibration or anything. But I did become aware that, yeah, I have to be careful. I have to look for that. I can't just believe if someone says to me, oh, I like you and I'll do this and that. You have to really look and actually be fairly conscious and alert, even with the people you deal with. Whereas I was trusting and thought, why would someone lie when they don't have to? Well, there are lots of people that lie just for the fun of it. Because, like Satan himself, they like to deceive, they like to have a bit of fun, they like to confuse, they like to create a bit of chaos. It doesn't even serve them most of the time, just it doesn't. But it usually comes back at them, in fact. But they're so chaotic and so negative that they only live in the moment and only want that negative energy, just as this matrix feeds off all our negative energy. And it keeps the low vibration to where the matrix, this fake mind game world, can keep going. It can't keep going once the vibration rises too high with too many people. And that's why it has to be kept low, otherwise it would cease to exist. You know, it would just fold up. I'm not sure how, but I know that it would. But also, if human beings naturally knew that they could create, that they're spiritual beings and their thought creates reality and they're all connected, but of course they would create a different world if they actually were at the highest spiritual level than what actually exists. Of course they would. They would just automatic. That would be, I think that would be common sense, wouldn't it, really? But that's not going to happen. And it hasn't happened. In fact, the reverse has happened. We've gone into lower vibration, and because we have so much more information, we think that enlightens us. But in reality, it actually confuses us more and keeps us trapped more in the matrix because we lap up the information and we think it benefits us. And you can't blame us for doing that. But if you have to realize that it's all part of the matrix, well, then unless you can sort of discern, and that's very hard too if you're in the low vibration, to discern what is the truth from, from the fake reality. And even that, if you're dealing with human beings who are very cold, shall we say, more of a certain personality type, they might have the intellect to actually be able to see and investigate, different theories and different things that are going on and stuff, and they might actually be interested in do that. But they will need an awful lot of truth And that truth will have to be mixed with practical information to seduce them to even show the truth. You follow what I'm saying there? That they will need an awful lot of persuasion because they're so logical and their intuition is very low. Whereas if their intuition was high, they would only need a little bit of truthful information to say, hey, look, that fits the picture. I know it's true. I don't have to have every piece of the puzzle because I can just see it. But in the world we live in today, we need an awful lot of, of information. Even to prove a truth, we have to have so much information because we haven't got that discernment and that intuition to just automatically say, oh yeah, I think I can see that that's a setup, that's not right. We have to have it proved 110% almost before we believe it. And some people, even at 110%, will still opt for the fake, illusionary, comforting, so-called comforting security world that we live in, where they're like, hey, don't break my illusions. I don't blame them for that, because when your illusions are broken, as mine have been, it is a look, to say that it's devastating, to say that it's like losing everything, and you feel like that you don't know what to do, and that you have no sense of reality almost at all, because we believe so much in this fake reality. And to have that taken from us, then you're like, where do you go from here? Like, oh, good, let me get back to my fake reality, because I can't stand it. It takes a big person to deal with that. It really does. And when I say a big person, I mean a lot of us are not big people, but we're almost forced to deal with it. I mean, like, I'm not a big person, I'm just forced to deal with it. And I don't like that either. But most people are not forced to deal with it, so they do have the choice. So they will opt for the choice of the fake reality, because it's just easier. It's just too hard to face the fact that everything is false. It's just too much of a break from reality, even though the reality is fake. It's like, because they built their whole life on it. It's like you build your whole life on certain beliefs and things, and then to have the carpet pulled right out from underneath you, like, what do you do? And particularly if you're older, it's even harder still. I think if this had happened to me when I was younger, I could have probably made something good of it. But because I'm so much older and sicker and more, and because also the matrix comes even more down on you when you get like that, then it really is like, oh gosh, you don't want to deal with it. You really don't. And you don't want to face it, and you just want to opt out, but you can't. So and then you also know that by that attitude, you're bringing the frequency down, so then you're affecting this and that. So it's a burden. It becomes an absolute burden. And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be, some of us were actually supposed to be making videos or talking to people that are our enemies, that actually want to destroy us. That is strange. A bit like, the Matrix movie once again comes to mind, where I think the fella says to Neo, look, for now or something, the very people that you are trying to help are now your enemy, because they don't want to be unplugged from the Matrix. Their whole security, their whole life depends on it. They're entrenched in it. They need their jobs for survival because they've been tricked by the Matrix. So if you try to unplug them and take them from that, they think you're trying to take their livelihood from them. So it's kind of like that, and it is a very dire situation for everyone. But anyway, I said I was going, and just about exhausted, so I better close off. Thank anyone for listening, and if anyone's having a difficult time, which I've no doubt there are many people that are having a difficult time, not everyone is given the choice, that's right, to just opt into the fake comfort zone even of the Matrix, even though that will not last forever, because it can't, because all these things don't get better. If you ignore something, it is a fact. I know that with my own life. If you ignore something, it don't get better. It goes away for a while, but when it comes back, it'll hit you even harder. This is why I'm in the position I'm in now. So I'm saying, everybody, yeah, if you can realise things and wake up, at least you can only be aware, really, I think, at this point, and then you have to make your choices, I guess. I really don't know, to be honest. I don't know what more to say. I don't know. I don't fully know what the solution is. I do know that if we all got to a high vibration, everything would probably be fine. But how you get to do that, because we went so far away from it. And technology is definitely not the answer for high vibration, I'll tell you that now. Okay. We're meant to be one with nature, not one with artificial stuff. That is alien to the human. Always has been, and it's been our downfall all along. Even associating with that type of thing. Artificial intelligence, technical beings, they're meant to associate with their own kind. That might sound prejudiced, that might sound racist, whatever you like if you want to say it. But it's just the truth, because one will not benefit the other. One will not bring out the best in the other. One will take from the other. One will deplete the other. One will destroy the other. So it's not a question of being biased. You might even be attracted and even admire something that is technical, but it is not to your benefit, unfortunately. You might have nothing against something technical. I don't, but it's not to my benefit. Okay.